In this session today, we'll be discussing prepayments surrounding Levridge and its functionality in regards to ag sales. So, what is a prepayment? A prepayment is a payment that's made in advance of receiving goods and services. Now, typically in the ag sales industry, this is things like fertilizer, seed, maybe fuel. And Microsoft does already offer basic prepayment functionality, but Levridge enhances that with very agriculture specific features. So let's dive into the system and see what that looks like. Here we are. So again, Microsoft does have basic functionality around prepayments, but we're going to focus in the Ag Sales module. Now, when we head into Ag Sales, we'll head to Payments and Prepayments, and this is where we'll begin to create a prepayment. Before you can create a prepayment for the first time, there are a few setup steps that you do need to do in agriculture parameters. So we'll go ahead and check there. So again, that's in Ag Sales Setup, Agriculture Parameters. And under Payments here, there are some options for customer prepayments. Now, you can allow prepayments to have additional credit notes. That's essentially like giving the customer an extra dollar value because they've already prepaid for so much. There can be a reason to require prepay on charges, but really the big piece that's needed is this payment entry, where you can set up a payment journal that goes along with prepayments. Okay. We also have a couple of other settings that are used later when we actually try to utilize the prepayment on a sales order line, and that revolves around this auto apply prepayments and allow prepay for charges and taxes options. We'll discuss how that's utilized more in another demo, but for right now, it's just important to know that these settings exist. So let's go ahead and go create a prepayment. So again, that was Ag Sales Payments, Prepayments. And we'll go ahead and click New. Now we do need to select our prepayment journal, and then we'll click this button of Enter Customer Prepayments. Now normally when you would create a prepayment in Microsoft out of the box, this button wouldn't exist. You would go into lines and create some lines for that prepayment journal. But we have added this functionality to enter customer prepayments so that we can do it in a way that assigns those dollar values to something. So what we'll start off with is we will go ahead and select a customer. And then we've got some options here. So a payment reference could often be a check number, and you'll often be handed a check by a customer, right? So we'll just enter something in here. You will often use a deposit slip. We've got method of check already selected alongside our bank and offset account. These can be auto set based on some settings in your journal as well. But now we have the option to put in an amount, and we could pay however much ahead of time as we'd like. So let's just say that Read Range here gave us this check for $25,000. Okay. Now they can prepay for a variety of things. They could prepay for things that are uncontracted, or they could prepay for things that are contracted, which is what is often referred to in the industry as contracts or bookings, but in Microsoft and Levridge, it's called a sales agreement. So if we look, we can see that Read Range does have a couple of sales agreement lines out there that we could prepay for. And then we could also add some uncontracted lines. So we're going to do a little bit of a combo here. So to begin with, we're going to just click Add Line to add this uncontracted line. Now you can choose to apply this directly to an item, or you can choose to apply it towards a sales category. If we just apply it to an item, at this point, we can select an item. You have the option of entering a prepayment price if you'd like, which could mean, hey, I've prepaid for this much. I'm going to get a bit of a discount. So instead of being 25 cents, this is 20.5 cents. And then let's reduce that allocation amount. We're actually just going to use 5,000 for this product. So this quantity is then calculated based on this prepayment price and allocation amount. And you can see that we've got 5,000 applied and 20,000 remaining. Now we could do similar. We could add another item, but not have a prepayment price. And this just means that someone is prepaying no matter what price it's at the time. This means that maybe they don't get a discount. Maybe they're just kind of saying, I want this much of this item and I'm going to prepay for it. And that's what we can see here. So now we can see that we've applied 10,000. We still have 15,000 remaining. And let's go ahead and add another one. But this time, let's look at the sales category. So when choosing sales category, you'll see that item number and item name are no longer available to choose from. Instead, we have this idea of a procurement category. Now, these are our procurement categories that are set up within procurement and sourcing. So each one of these belongs to the procurement category hierarchy. Basically, this means that we've got something called fertilizer here, but beneath fertilizer, we have the idea of dry fertilizer and liquid fertilizer. So maybe the customer only ever uses liquid fertilizer and they just want to say, I'm going to prepay towards this. Anything that is liquid fert, I want to prepay for that. But if they were to prepay at the fertilizer level, what that means is that anything that's under dry fert or liquid fert, they could prepay for with those dollars. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and click on fertilizer. And then let's adjust this amount one more time. So let's actually just do 7,500 this time. You'll see we've still got 7,500 remaining. And let's go apply that to a sales agreement. So either one of these we could choose. We could choose to do them both even. But this is where it says amount received. Okay. If you see, this is the amount available. So if we click Mark Selected on this line, it will apply the total value. You can see when we did that there is a remaining value that is smaller now. We've got only 2,000 left of our original 25,000. So we could keep prepaying for the next agreement as well. So let's go ahead and mark selected there. You'll notice that our quantity is now completely applied, and this one hasn't been fully prepaid for, but it is there. So let's go ahead and click Save and Journal. What that's going to do is save the voucher itself. Everything from this screen will sort of disappear, but we could find it again if we clicked this voucher drop down, and we could continue editing until we post it. Once it's posted, you can't look at this piece again. So we'll go ahead and click back, and then let's post. Okay. Now, just like how you could look at the lines of a prepayment, once this has been posted and established, we can go look at those lines again as well. And then Levridge has added these pieces about prepaid distribution and agreement distribution. So you can see that we've got one line with just the 25,000 there. That is a credit on their account. But here we can kind of see where it's been applied to. Okay. So these two actually represent the agreement lines that it's applied to. But then we've got two items that we did, one with a price and one without. And then we've also got the sales category. And then you'll see the agreement distribution over here, where we've got the two that were applied to agreements. Okay. Now that the prepayment has been established, it's really ready to be used on a sales order. This will be discussed later when we go over sales orders and then also invoicing. But right now, your prepayment is fully set up and ready to be used. In order to see what a customer might have, Levridge also has this feature around prepayment lines. So if we navigate to prepayment lines within that Ag Sales inquiries and reports and look for that customer we just worked with, if we display what they've got, you can see this was all created under the same voucher. We've got payment references as we did before, and you can also see what items, quantities, and prepayment amounts are here. Okay. As prepayments are used or applied, fully invoiced, these values will update. And then we can also, of course, have returns against this prepay as well. You can continue to do things like prepayment adjustments. That's another process where we would move prepayment values from one category to another or one item to a contract. Essentially, you could move any of these things around. And then, of course, they are ready again to be used by the customer. And that's it for now until we continue with sales orders and how both these prepayments and sales agreements will be applied to them.